Are you new to pressure cooking and you're just a little bit terrified by the whole pressure cooker itself? Well, I'm going to show you in today's video how to easily use one of these things and why you don't need to worry about it, so stick around. Hey, welcome back to another Slightly Redneck video. Again, my name is Chris, and today we're going to be talking about pressure cookers. I'm going to show you how to use one of these things, all the safety features, so you don't need to worry about this if this is something you've been intimidated by. It's actually very, very easy to do. So, before we get into actually using the pressure cooker, we need to talk about a few basics of what you're going to expect in a pressure cooker. I've got two different models here. This one right here is a Presto modern pressure cooker. You can buy it any of the big box stores. It's got a weighted pressure regulator on it here, and I'll show you how that works here in a few minutes. This one over here was my grandmother's pressure canner. It's probably, I don't know, mid-60s, late 60s model that she bought. And it's a Miro brand pressure cooker. Still works just great. You can still buy all the parts, but it has a different style weight on it. Now, as far as the parts of a pressure cooker, starting off at the top here, this is your pressure regulator right here. Now, the way this one works is a weighted system. So it's got these weights. These are each 5-pound weights on this one. You'll have to look at your manufacturer's instructions to make sure yours works the same way. So this weight, without either one of these on there, without either one of these washers, is a 5-pound weight. When you look at a recipe, it's going to tell you to cook at 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds. This is what determines that. So this is a 5-pound weight. If I were to set that on there, it's 5 pounds. If I put another washer on there, it's 10 pounds, and another one goes on, it's 15 pounds of pressure. So that's all you need to know about that for right now. This one, like I said, is a little bit different. It's a dial type, well, not a dial, but a different type of weight, and it's got, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but it's got 10 pounds right here, it's got 15 pounds, I think, yeah, right there, and 5 pounds right here. So the way that works is you just find the right one, like there's the 5-pound mark right there. You set it on top of your canner, and that's 5 pounds of pressure. So that'll make more sense whenever we actually get into using it, how that's going to work. So you've got the pressure regulator right here, and yours may have, there are some that have a dial gauge that actually sticks up with a dial on it and numbers that's a little bit different than this style here. This is your vent pipe. So this is what vents out the steam. You do need to make sure when you use a pressure cooker, before you use it, take the lid off, hold it up to the light, and look through that right there to make sure that that vent pipe is clear, that there's nothing plugging it up. If there is something plugging it up, you're not going to be able to build pressure in the pot, or you're going to build pressure and you're going to overpressure, and you'll pop your safety valves. So make sure that that's cleaned out. Run a toothpick through it or something if you need to. Just hold it up to the light and look and make sure it's clean. You can see on the underside of the lid there's going to be a ring, a rubber gasket that sits inside there. That's the seal that helps seal it up. If this goes bad, they're easy to replace, and you'll know if it goes bad because when you start cooking your pressure on your pressure cooker, you'll have steam and water escaping out the side of the lid. And if that goes bad, you need to replace it. Same thing, you've got a pressure release valve right here. On the other side, this is what it looks like. So that's going to pop if you go over pressure. So if you get too much pressure, this is a safety feature, and one of the reasons why you don't need to worry about using your pressure cooker. If you get too much pressure in here, that thing pops out and it's going to start letting steam out and pressure out right there, and you won't be able to build up enough pressure to be dangerous. So there's really nothing to worry about when it comes to using a pressure cooker. All right, one other thing on the lid itself is this right here is a lid vent lock. It's not on all pressure cookers. So you can kind of think of this as kind of like it's an indicator that you've got pressure in your system. So what's going to happen when we get this thing up to pressure, that's going to pop up and lock, and that locks that lid down in place. It locks the vacuum in. So when this thing is up, you think of your pressure canner as a loaded gun, do not open it. Don't pull the trigger. Don't open it while this is raised. And that'll make more sense again here in just a few minutes. These both work pretty much the same thing, so I'm not going to bother going through everything on this. Now to close these lids, let's see, hopefully that'll show up on camera. There's a little notch right there, or a little arrow right there. There's one on the handle. You kind of line those up together, and that's what sets the lid on there. And then, whoops, I don't have it lined up very well. There we go. You line those up together, you set the lid down on there, and then you turn to lock it in place. And it's got, let me open that back up one more time. It's got these flanges here that hold the lid down, and that's what That, along with that gasket seal on the bottom side, is what creates the seal that can help you build up the pressure. Okay, a few things about cooking or canning inside a pressure cooker. First of all, you cannot can in a dedicated pressure cooker. You need a cooker that is both a canner and cooker. Most of the large style like this, where they come in like, it looks like a big stock pot, that's going to be a pressure cooker or canner. It can be used for either one. If you have the little pots that look like just a little pot with a handle that sticks off the side, those are usually pressure cookers only. You cannot use them for canning. But the basic principles are going to work the same. Let me open this up and we'll see what it looks like inside. Okay, you should have something like this as a rack to set your jars on if you're going to be canning in it. Let me get this out of the way real quick. Okay, so when you're canning in a pressure cooker, you're not going to use very much liquid at all in this. You're only going to fill it up about 3 inches on the bottom with water. You'll put your jars in there, and then you'll go about pressure canning. Do not overfill your pressure canner. Now, I will say that it's probably better to have 4 inches than 2 inches, so it's better to go a little bit more water than it is a little bit less water, especially if you're pressure canning something that's going to be canning for, 50, 90 minutes, something like that. This canner is actually pretty nice because it has a mark in the bottom that tells you how high the water needs to be for canning, and you don't need to fill it much over that. When you're cooking in a pressure cooker, say you're cooking something like a stew or a soup or something like that, you really want to try to keep it below halfway or right at halfway full. You can go up to 2/3 full. This canner has a mark for halfway and a mark for 2/3, but never go over 2/3 full in your pressure cooker. Also, you want to stay away from things like applesauces, what else would there be? Applesauce, cereals, pastas, any of those kinds of things that kind of expand and foam when you cook them. You don't want to cook them in a pressure cooker because what happens is they can expand that foam and let me get up this lid. And that can clog up this vent pipe right here, and that can cause a lot of problems. So you really want to stay away from those type of things. One more thing about canning: if you are going to can in your pressure cooker, make sure you use an approved recipe. Pick up a Ball blue book of canning preserving, and it'll give you all the recipes you need. Let me grab that book and I'll show you what it looks like. Great recipe book. It's full of recipes for pressure canners, canning different types of vegetables and fruits and things like that. And all of them are approved recipes, so you can go away knowing that you're fine to use these recipes. The cover may look a little bit different. I don't remember what year this is. It seems like they come out with a new one about every year or two that maybe have 1 or 2 new recipes in it. All right, now cooking's a little bit more relaxed when you're cooking in this thing. You can really kind of use your imagination on this. Just make sure you understand what you're cooking meats to. For example, chicken cooks at 15 pounds of pressure, and it varies anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes at 15 pounds of pressure. So you could put chicken in here, you could put carrots and potatoes and all kinds of things with it, and you're going to cook it at 15 pounds pressure for 10 minutes or so, depending on your recipe. So I've got my pressure cooker sitting on the stove here, and you will notice this is a glass top stove. You hear lots of people talk about not using glass top stoves for pressure cookers. I've used it for years. I've never had a problem. A couple things you do want to be careful of is you want to make sure that you have a flat bottom on your pressure cooker, not a concave bottom. I hear that doesn't work very well on a glass top stove. And also, these things get really, really heavy, so you don't really want to overfill it, and don't slam it down on your glass top. Don't scoot it around. It'll cause scratches, things like that. So you just want to be careful of it when you're using it on there, and it should work fine. If your first time to using a pressure cooker, the best way to get to learn to use it is just put your rack in there and pour about 3 quarts of water in it. Well, 3 quarts for this one. That's going to give me that 3 inches like if I were canning. And I know you can't see it on the notch, but there's a notch over here that shows me that I'm right at about 3 inches of water. And then we're just going to start using it with water. This will give you a chance to kind of get used to your pressure cooker, how it works, where the sweet spot on your stove is. So all I'm going to do is add the water into that. I'm going to put the lid on it, lock the lid down, and then I'm actually going to turn this around a little bit. And the reason I'm turning this around is because this lock over here, this lid lock, when it pops up and before it gets up to pressure, it's going to sputter just a little bit of water. And on my stove, if I get water on the instrument, on control panel right here, it likes to air out. So it's not really that big a deal. I just turned it around for that reason. So what I'm going to do now is turn my stove on, and I'm turning it on to high heat. And we're going to let this thing get up to pressure. What's going to happen as this starts to gain pressure, starts to heat up, and the water starts to boil, is this lid lock is going to pop up a little bit. It's not going to be completely locked, but it's going to pop up, and you're going to see a little bit of sputtering out of there. We're going to run this until we see steam coming out of this vent pipe, regular interval of steam, or a regular spew of steam coming out of this vent pipe, and that's probably going to take me about 15 minutes or so to get it up to pressure. You can kind of think of this like you were cooking a pot of soup or something like that on the stove. You would bring it up to a boil with a high heat, and then once it gets up to a boil, you're going to reduce the heat back down and keep it at a simmer. And that's basically the same thing that we're going to work on with this pressure cooker. We're going to get it up to heat until it's steam just pouring out of here. Then we'll put our gauge on it, and we'll bring it down, we'll drop it down in heat, and we'll keep it at a simmer to maintain our pressure. Alright, so this has been heating up for, I don't know, 5-6 minutes or something like that, and it's starting to build some pressure up, but we still got a little ways to go just yet. Just wanted to show you, you're going to see a couple things like your overpressure valve is kind of, I don't know, acts a little bit weird, a little bit of water kind of spurting out the sides of it. Not a big deal, don't stress about that. If it just continues to do that the whole time, that means you need to replace this valve, and they're cheap and easy to replace, so not a big deal on that. What we should be looking for next is this lock is going to pop up here in just a few minutes. We're starting to see water starting to spurt out the vent pipe right here. Again, that means it's getting closer. We're just going to have to wait and be patient. Now you probably can't see this on film, but it's starting to steam out the vent pipe, but it's not constant steam. It's just spurts of steam. So we want to wait till it's constantly steaming. Again, what we should see is that lid lock back there pop up. It's getting ready to here any second now. And there went the lid lock popping up there. Now what we should see is the steam starting to come out of here, and you can hear it. So now I've got a steady stream of steam coming out. You may not be able to see it, but you can hear it probably. Now if you're cooking, that's all you got to do. You're ready to go. If you're actually canning, you need to let this run for about 10 minutes like this to vent, to exhaust all the air out of the canner. So 10 minutes with it just steaming like crazy to let it exhaust all the air. But if you're cooking in it, then you're ready to go. Now at this point what you're going to do is you're going to take your weight. In this situation it's a weighted gauge, or if it was the other one, you're going to have this kind of a weight on it. You're going to pick out the right pressure for whatever recipe you're cooking. I'm just going to use 10 pounds of pressure. I've just got one washer on there because it'll work a little bit quicker, and it just sits on top of there. And we're going to let this thing continue to run at high. You'll see that there's a little bit of water spurting out this lock. That will stop whenever it gets up to full pressure. And we're going to wait till this is going to start jiggling. What we're going to see is it's going to start doing like this on the canner. So we're going to leave it at high heat until that happens. And that'll take another 5 or 10 minutes probably. Now you can see it's changed noise a little bit, and it's starting to rock. So we'll give that a second to get going. That's about the consistency you want. Now initially it's going to start rocking a lot more than that. So we're going to start turning down the heat. And you're going to turn it way, way down. This is one reason why it's a good idea to work with your pressure cooker with just nothing but water in it for a little while. Get used to how your stove works with it. Mine, I'm turning it down to about a 2 setting, which is about a simmer. And I find that works out to be a pretty good spot. Whenever you make temperature adjustments to this, give it a few minutes to adjust before you just call that good, because it's going to take a few minutes for that pressure to regulate. So this is about, there you go, that's about what you're looking for, is a gentle rocking motion. As long as you can maintain that, it doesn't need to be any more violent than that. As long as you can maintain that, you're at the right pressure, and you start your timer whenever that starts rocking. If you're canning in this especially, and that stops rocking, if the weight stops moving, you need to turn your heat up, get it rocking again, and start your timer all over again, because you have to maintain that pressure. Now, when your recipe is finished and you've gone for the allotted amount of time, we'll kill the heat, and we're going to move the canner from the burner, from the heat to a cool burner. Now be careful when you do this. Again, it could be heavy and there's steam coming out of it, so be careful. All right, now we're going to let this thing come down to pressure on, or come down from pressure on its own. Do not, under any circumstance, pull that weight off of here. If you do, you're going to be sorry you did. It's going to be screaming and just blowing steam out of there, whistling like a freight train coming down the road. It'll scare the heck out of you. Don't do it. We're going to wait until that lock back there drops down, and that's whenever it tells us that there's no pressure. Now, if you don't have that lock, you're going to wait till the pressure regulator stops jiggling, and you're going to give it another 10 minutes or so after that. This will probably take a good 15 minutes for it to cool down. Okay, I was trying to get it on film when you actually got to see that drop down, and I missed it. It just dropped down though. So that means that the pressure is now down to a safe level, and we can go ahead and remove the weight. First of all, no steam coming out of there. And then you can take the lid off. Now be careful when you take this lid off. It's still hot as can be. There's lots of steam that's going to come out here, so open it away from yourself and exhaust the steam like that. And that's really all there is to it. Once it's once it's cooled down, once the pressure is released, you can just take the lid off. You're ready to remove your jars at that point, or if you're cooking in this, you're ready to go ahead and serve dinner. Well, I hope that puts you at ease a little bit. You can realize that the pressure canner is nothing to be afraid of. And I tell you what, if you haven't cooked in one of these things before, they're great for canning, of course, and they're a necessity for canning a lot of low-acid foods. But if you haven't ever used one for cooking, you ought to look into it, man. You can put a roast in here and you cook it for about an hour. Well, an hour elapsed time, bring your canner up to heat, and I think it's going to go for, 15 pounds pressure for 15 minutes or something like that. But it's about an hour overall time because, getting it up to pressure, letting it cool down, whatnot. But it tastes like it's been in the oven all day long. Where I think these things really, really shine is when it comes to making stock. So you take your leftover Thanksgiving turkey or your leftover rotisserie chickens or whatever, throw them in here with some vegetables, cover it with a little bit of liquid, and then you can bring it up to pressure, 15 pounds of pressure for probably 20 minutes or so, and you've got a pretty good chicken stock that you would normally have to spend hours simmering on the stovetop all day long. So it's something worth trying out, and hopefully you have a little bit of confidence now, and you've gotten over any fear that you might have had. So thank you all for watching, and as always, God bless.